Here's what we're making today. Making some bread. Really simple, like rustic, simple, awesome bread. Okay, so let's get to this and we'll go through all the steps. So take some notes. We're gonna have some time to it smells great too. My name is Andres. This is the Baking Steel Studio. We're gonna make bread, artisan bread. We're gonna do it without a scale. And I know that's a taboo. I always encourage people to use a scale because we want to dial in our ingredients, and a scale is really critical. However, we do have a lot of folks that don't want to use a scale, don't have one for whatever reason. And there is a workaround, and we're going to do that today. It's not going to be the perfect bread, but it's really good. Actually, it can be perfect. I shouldn't say that. It's all what you make. And it's really good bread. I did all this bread without a scale. Super easy to do. Let's get right to it. I'm going to take you through the steps. Then we'll get to all your questions later on. We're going to follow up this class today with a shorter term video so you guys can see exactly the ingredients, all of the steps, hopefully very detailed and simple. Okay, so let's go top down and go right in. I've got my dough container here. Really critical. For my measuring, I'm using measuring cups. So no digital scale, measuring cups. The flour, red flour, central milling, high protein, red flour. It's great. Great for breads. So first things first, I'm going to grab 2 scoops of flour. And the way we do that is literally, like you can see, it's almost full. That's one. I'm going to do that twice. Little finesse here. This isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to be good. There's 2. I'm going to go a little bit heavier on this one. That one's a little small. See, 2 scoops of flours, boom, right? Next, I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of salt. So I literally just take my salt, right? 1 teaspoon goes right in. I'm going to whisk this around. Next, I'm going to take some Fleischmann's active dry yeast. I'm using 1/4 teaspoon. That's 1/4 teaspoon. Just dump it in. Very similar to our 72-hour dough, but we're not using a scale. We're trailblazing, right? Pick it up and whisk. And now I'm going to use 1 cup back of water. Take my water. Fill it almost all the way up like this and pour it in. So it's real easy math. It's two cups of flour and 1 cup of water. And now I'm going to simply just mix it. And I got to use again, a really low skill level here. I'm just kind of hydrating the flour and the water together. And then mix. When it gets to be like 1 piece, I'm gonna put 1 hand in. And again, I'm gonna use 1 hand in the flour. So this would be my hand, my flour hand, and this would be my dry hand. I repeat that every week, but I'm just want to emphasize to keep 1 hand clean at all times. And it's starting to form 1 big mass. I can scrape off my hand from time to time. I love these dough containers because all my mess kind of stays inside, which is great. And as I can go, I can kind of scrape up in here too. And I like to sometimes do is remove it from the container and clean out my container. But I'm not going to do that in class today. However, you can see it's starting to get sticky, which is awesome. I mean, it's hydrating really nicely, and it's a very wet dough. Do as much as I can, scrape the sides as much as I can. And you see, got 1 big mass of dough. Now, take this mass, right? I could probably do, I could mix this for maybe a minute or 2 longer, clean out the bowl. If I was doing this, I would probably, after class, I might clean out this bowl and mix it just another minute. But I'm gonna take my container and cover it. And that's it. That's it. That's all I'm gonna do to this. I'm gonna mix it. So, and I'll explain the recipe a little later, but that's it. That's all of my ingredients in this container. I'm gonna let this sit for 24 hours. Okay, it's that easy. This is gonna make incredible bread because we use incredible ingredients, right? I have an incredible, great mixer, my hands. Now, after 24 hours, we're gonna do a little bit of work. And I've got the dough here. I'm gonna go back to top down that I made. I'm gonna pull it out so you guys top down again, so you guys can see a little flour down, right here. Okay, put my dough right down, form one big ball. And the next thing I'm gonna do, flour both sides, kind of like a big pizza ball, right? Like a dough ball. I'm gonna just kind of fold this a few times, and I can do this kind of however I want to do. All I'm trying to do is make it in a ball. I can kind of just punch it, if you will, pinch it, see how it's forming, right? Any way you want to do this. And I'm kind of pinching it closed, right? Pinch the sides. I can even fold it a little bit more if I'd like. Boom. Actually, I'm gonna leave it just like this. Pinch it, pinch it. Really, really rustic. That's it. And now what I'm gonna do, make sure those holes are pinched. I'm gonna take this dough and literally let it sit there for about maybe an hour. Okay, 1 hour. We go back here. After I got my dough here, I'm gonna cover it, right? The towel or something maybe a little damp so it doesn't stick, cover it with flour. And that's all I'm gonna do. Let this sit and for an hour. I'm gonna divide it in half. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do that. If I don't have an hour, I can do it a little sooner. I just like to let it rest a little bit more to really get those like that air inside rested, the gluten's rested a little bit. So after an hour, what I'm gonna do is take a piece of parchment. Take a piece here. Take a piece of parchment paper, place it on top, boom, right? And now what I'm gonna do is just lightly kind of stretch it out. Go back on top here so you guys can see what I'm doing. It's beautiful, right? Just kind of lightly stretch it out and rest. Let it rest again, maybe for like a couple of minutes. Take my dough scraper and just literally cut this in half. You don't even have to cut this down. I like to cut it in half. I'm gonna have 2 pieces of bread, right? Let that sit. Boom. I'm gonna take some flour and some semolina flour. And I'm gonna do this. This just kind of gives it a nice finishing touch. And I like the semolina flour too. Gives it a little texture on top. And this bread is now ready to bake. I'm gonna bake this. I'm gonna launch this into my oven. I'm gonna do that now. At 450 degrees. Actually, I'll just put it aside. And bake it for about 18 minutes, just like this. Back here, see me good? I'm gonna bake this now for about 18 minutes. I might toss a couple of ice cubes in my oven on my baking steel that's been preheating at 450 for like the last hour and bake. So let's fast track. Let's do this. Oh, look what we have here. This is the same bread that I just made, right? Got this really nice little soft crust to it, right? And this is where I sliced it, which I think it's got this really nice organic look to it. This would make incredible bread rolls, sandwiches, subs, right? Or just dinner rolls, right? Incredible, super easy, no digital scale, really nice ingredients, about an 18-minute bake on your steel. And we have like some of the best bread you're ever gonna try. Let's get to some questions. Do you mind saying all the ingredients? Let's go through it again. And we're gonna follow up again. No digital scale. We are trailblazing without that scale. It's gonna be tougher to dial in exactly the ingredients, but we can do it. And that's how I made this bread. It's 2 cups of flour. I used an organic bread flour, and I kind of a heaping, if you will, right? It is 1 cup of water. So it's 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of water. Then I used 1 teaspoon of sea salt and 1/4 teaspoon of active dry yeast. I whisked the dry ingredients together, and then I slowly added my water in, and then I kneaded it by hand for just a couple of minutes until we had our dough, and then we let it sit overnight for 24 hours. I came in, then we made a really loose ball of dough, and we cut it in half and we baked it the next day. Ideally, once I make my dough ball, I'm gonna let that sit for maybe an hour, and then I'm gonna slice it. You can see this proofed a little bit longer than these. You can see, I'm gonna show you the difference by letting it proof, and I think these are about the same size. So you can see here the difference between like a final proof, right? So I let these sit for an hour before I bake them, and they kind of did their rise, if you will. But awesome. Super cool. Same size bread, same recipe, same everything. Let's get to some more questions. And this smells amazing. If you wanted to bake 1 large loaf, would you suggest perching the baked bread on the baking steel bracelets towards the end? Would you assume? Yeah, great question. I could have made 1 loaf instead of 2, because I just kept these combined, made 1 larger one. You can see my bottoms here. This is about an 18-minute bake. I didn't even use the bracelets here. If I wanted to get them a little darker, then yes, I would add my bracelets. I don't want to burn the bottoms. But even with that, 450 Fahrenheit on convection, that's a good bake. Awesome. Man, that smells good. This is the 24-hour dough. Devoured soon. Can you list the dough ingredients? Okay, can you let the dough rest, ferment in the fridge? Yeah, great question. Can I instead let this go longer? Yeah, 100%. So this dough is kind of created as a quick overnight dough. There is the only caveat is to make sure you're using a really nice flour. If you're going to go for a longer fermentation, you want to go with a really strong protein flour. This is a central milling flour. Let me see what the protein on it. I think it's about 13.7. It's high. It's a big, let me see, strong flour. I don't see there's a protein content on it. Oh, it's 13.5 protein content. So that's high. Organic. King Arthur also has a high, so it's a hybrid flour. You need that strong flour for the longer ferments. You could do this if you only have all-purpose flour. That'll be great for 24 hours. Highly recommend. And can you, okay, so then how about freezing the dough? That's a really good question. I would, in fact, because I'm actually going back to Boston tomorrow, and I'm making all this flour out of this dough, and guess what? I'm not gonna be back until maybe Sunday. So I am gonna take this dough container, I'm gonna clean it out, put my dough right back inside, and put this right in my freezer. And we're gonna freeze the entire bulk of dough. Just over the weekend, because I'm not gonna be around. So why waste it? If I come back in on Monday, I can let it thaw out on the counter and then bake it. It'll freeze great, up to about 30 days. Let's see, do those open on their own? Did you end up scoring them? Oh, good question. Right, it kind of scored on its own, because when I took my dough scraper, I cut it in half. I didn't pinch it. I just kind of left it open, which I kind of loved. I kind of like that rustic look of these. Like a sub, I could just slice it there, make a sandwich out of this. It's gonna be really good, guys. Like, it smells incredible. Nice 24-hour dough. Can you cut into one of the loaves? Yes, let's do that. Let me grab a knife. Oops, wrong one. Let's cut into one. So we grab a knife, I'm gonna slice it. Let me get rid of this thing for a second. I'm gonna bake this bread shortly. Let's take one, serrated knife, always is good. And we're gonna slice away. Oh man, get some olive oil going. Oh, just gorgeous, right? Amazing. Smells good. Boom. There's our bread. Is that okay? Awesome. And it smells good too. When do you set it aside for 24 hours? You put it in the refrigerator or on the counter? The initial 24 hours, I did room temp the entire time. I made this yesterday. I let it sit here overnight. I came in this morning, I took it out. I kind of made a light ball with it, let it rest for an hour, and then I baked it before class. That's it. And I got the loaf, we got inside of that. Does a parchment paper burn at 450? Great question. It does not. The only time I have a problem with parchment paper is when I'm using the broiler. I didn't use the broiler for bread, so we're good. So no problem there. We all want you to cut one. Good, I did, right? You got that. Boom. It's great. It's awesome. Looks great. Thank you, guys. Any more questions? Smells amazing too. I know Cooper's gonna have some in a few minutes. He's hungry. Awesome, you guys. Thank you again for being here. We're gonna follow up with this recipe and a shorter form video for you. You guys rock. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Actually, I think we're off next week. We're somewhere else, but we will be back in like 2 weeks. I know we got English muffins on the agenda for July, and whatever else you guys want, let us know in the comments or email me, and we'll take care of you. You guys rock. Thank you.